Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review, we are looking at the Variable Action Heroes DX HATAKE, which is Naruti's cousin, aka Frank. Most people know him as Frank, but he does go by that name as well. And this is part of the same line that large Ace from One Piece figure was from. And that figure was a dumpster fire, hot garbage. This one is mostly significantly better. It does have some serious issues, which we'll talk about, but overall it's a really solid figure, so I think a lot of you guys are going to be pretty psyched for it. So let's go ahead and get it off the stand and take a closer look. And this guy stands to the top of his hair just shy of 9.5 inches, which is going to make him just about 23.5 centimeters. Now his legs aren't perfectly straight, so you're going to be able to fudge the height a little bit. You can adjust it with the torso some too, because this guy's relatively lanky, but that'll give you a pretty good estimate as far as size goes. Now the first thing I want to mention on this guy is that the proportions seem a little bit off. His legs are quite long, which would be okay if his arms were a little bit longer. His torso is relatively short and his arms match that. So it's not quite styled correctly as far as I'm concerned. Maybe that's how Naruti's stuff is drawn. I don't think that's the case though. I have watched it a little bit, and I don't remember anybody having short arms and long legs. So it's a little questionable, not terrible. Especially if you're going to pose him, it's nothing to really worry about. But his arms and upper body are definitely not quite the same styling as the legs, which are significantly longer than they need to be. But it's not a big deal. You can probably look past it. Most people probably wouldn't even notice it, so nothing to worry about there. As far as the paint goes on this guy, it's pretty good. He does have shading throughout everything, as far as I can tell. There's shading on the green, the blue, we'll get to the loose joints in a minute. Calm down there, Frank. We will talk about the shading now. So there is shading throughout. Oh my gosh. Flop over one more time and I'm done with this review, Frank. Stupid figure. Okay, so it has shading throughout. There's like a wash in there. There's actually really nice paintwork for the toes, which is good for all you foot fetishists. I mean, Naruto fans. So that's, it's got everything it needs. The shading in the green is really nice. The paints are really clean. Very pleased with it. However, the best part about this figure, by far, unquestionably, are the heads and the paint jobs that go with them. So I'll show you the one that comes on him in the package first. Very, very nicely done. The hair sculpt is incredibly sharp. Really nice shading on it. Very, very satisfying to look at. It's very well done. And this isn't even the best one. There are two better ones, which is good. And then the faces are painted nicely. The little headbands are painted nicely. Everything's pretty good about the paint job on this guy. Sculpt's actually pretty good too. But let's go ahead and get into this accessories. We have three different head pieces. We have the one that comes on him in the package with the bandana thing going down over his eye. So we have that one. We have one where the bandana is just up on his forehead like normal, which looks really nice. And then we have one with a face built into it, which doesn't have the headband at all. That one's my favorite. It does look really, really good. They really nailed the hair, but they all look fantastic. Now, as far as the different faces go, we have two for the over-the-eye bandana one. We have the one neutral face and one where his eye is squinting. Then for the normal bandana head, we have one where both eyes are squinting, one where he's winking, and then one where he's looking normal. And then, as I mentioned, the other head's face is permanently connected. But we do have a bunch of different hands. We have two fist hands. We have two gripping hands. We have two other type of gripping hands for holding his book. We have two instant transmission hands. We have two kind of grappling hands, and then two style pose wide open hands. Plenty of options there. We do have, of course, as I mentioned, the book, which he can hold. There's nothing on the pages of the book, but the cover is done nicely. We have one kunai, which is very nicely detailed. And then we have one spiky turtle punch, which is very nicely done. The saturation in the blue is just fantastic. And it looks great. It's really, really nicely done. A little difficult to fit together. The pegs are a little big. That's what she said, but it works nicely and it looks great. And then lastly, we have this display stand, which is questionable because I'm borrowing this from my friend, so I'm wondering if there's a piece missing. Although it doesn't look like it. It looks to me like the display stand just doesn't fit in the base. The peg doesn't fit in the base, so it doesn't work. So that's a bummer. But otherwise, really, really cool batch of accessories. Very pleased with that. Let's go ahead and talk about the articulation, even though you got a hint of that earlier. The head is pretty good. We have a ball peg where the head actually connects to the neck peg, and then that unfortunately is on a ball hinge, which just doesn't want to rotate, so that's a total mess. there's no reason for that. It should just be a double ball peg. Having this hinge here only limits the articulation, so that's a problem. But the ball peg is functional enough that it doesn't really matter. And then also, as you probably noticed, the neck is on a ball peg itself. So you're going to have no trouble posing this guy. They did put some hair, by the way, on the back of the neck, so it'll still look good when he's posed. And the hair does come down far enough and the collar comes up high enough and is stiff enough that you probably wouldn't need any more range anyway. There's just no reason for that ball hinge. A double ball peg would be sufficient, but it still works nice enough. For the shoulders, we have a ball peg connecting the arm to the body. This piece in here just floats around. It looks like there's supposed to be a butterfly joint at this blue piece, but it doesn't really seem to want to really do much. But I mean, it kind of wiggles back and forth, but the ball peg that holds the arm covers that range anyway, so not really sure why they bothered. But either way, you get forward and back motion there. Doesn't really accomplish anything because the arm still can't come around the chest, so don't really get what they're going for there. But you do get to raise the arm up, no problem at all. Little Michael Jackson pose on accident. Full rotation, it's all there. It's a ball hinge where the arm connects to that ball peg. So no problems, that's all good. Bicep swivel is fine. You have a double jointed elbow, which works okay, is kind of ugly, but is functional. And then it will swivel at the top part. So if you need to do this, you can do that, which is okay. For the wrist, it's just your standard ball hinge. Nothing special there, but it does work very nicely, so that's good. For the upper torso, you have a single ball peg. It's floppy though. He's got a floppy upper torso. I'm not applying any real force, and it is just going all over the place. So be careful with that. It does have good range. It's functional, but it is floppy. Now we have a double ball peg down here, a really big one down at the bottom, and then a medium-sized one up here. So you can move the lower torso around pretty well, and combining the two works nicely. This one's not as floppy, and this is just a floating piece, by the way. So I think you'll be able to get some posing done, but the floppy nature of the upper torso is definitely not cool. And because of the weight, it ends up making the lower torso floppy too, to some extent. So that's not great. You do have full rotation at the bottom, though. For the hips, we have our standard hinged ball pegs, or drop-down ball pegs, as some people like to say. And they work well enough. It does kick the leg out at an angle. You can see the foot's not pointing up, so that's kind of a bummer. But it does function, I guess, well enough if you really wanted to be able to do that. But these are floppy as all hell, too, so that's not good. Ball hinge for the hip itself is not floppy, so that's okay. But the crotch hinge is, so that's going to be a problem. Floppy, floppy, floppy for such a lanky character is not going to be fun to pose. There's a little bit of a thigh swivel in there. It mostly just rotates out, which is fine. I guess you can rotate it in a little bit too. So that's pretty good. Double jointed knees, not too bad. Not as tight as they could be, but not floppy. So that's okay. They're functional. And then for the ankles, we have a ball hinge, which is buried inside that cuff that's on the ankle, which is connected to the calf. So you don't really get much range going forward and back, but if you get it to rotate around, you can give yourself an ankle rocker, which will be helpful for some poses, so that's okay, I guess. But forward and back range is very minimal, and it's not very stiff. The toe is on what feels like maybe a hinged ball peg, maybe just a ball peg. Could be a double ball peg, can't quite get in there to see, but it's not like it's going to be holding up the figure at all. So it's nice that it's there, but it's floppy-ish, considering how heavy he is, so it's not going to be that helpful. So this guy looks cool, has a decent paint job, slightly odd proportions, really good accessories, cool heads, and a floppy-ass body that makes it almost impossible to pose him without him falling over, and the display stand is also floppy, so that doesn't help much either. So my ultimate verdict is, if you're lucky and get one that's not floppy, as unlikely as that is, you're going to love this figure. If you get one that's as floppy as this, you're still going to like it probably, especially if you're a Naruti fan, but it's going to piss you off while you're trying to pose it. So, I don't know. I have to say I don't recommend it because it's so damn floppy, but if that doesn't bother you, then buy it, and you're going to like it. So now you have the information to decide for yourself. I'm not here to tell you what to like, only to tell you the problems and the good things about the figure, and now you know just that. So thanks for watching, guys. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, and if you haven't yet subscribed, you may want to do so, because I do have new videos up just about every single day. We talk about action figures, movies, TV shows, video games, all kinds of fun stuff. So make sure you come back for that, and in the meantime, keep collecting.